Hello everyone and welcome back to Mark Anthony's Music Picks. Today is not going to be a music review episode like I traditionally do. For this episode, I wanted to address the long-standing, lingering question of whether or not the Technics SL-1200GR that came out in, I think, 2016 or 2017 is appropriate or good for long mixing house music and techno. If you look and watch all of the other reviews, I probably watched 15-20 reviews for the 1200GR on YouTube. If you go and read through the comments, it's just nothing but people bickering back and forth about whether or not digital pitch is better than analog and whether or not the 1200GR is appropriate for your typical club use DJing. Now, before I answer this question, I want to give you a little bit of context about me, because I think what the other videos are lacking is actually context about the person that's making the video. You don't understand how long they've been DJing, you don't understand what their requirements are, you don't know what their genre of preference is, and you don't know if they really know what they're talking about, right? So I've been collecting vinyl and practicing on vinyl since 2004. I love to play house music. I'm somewhat of a techno head. Tech house is definitely in my wheelhouse, and the style of mixes that I like to make are very long, smooth blends. I don't do anything abrupt. I have a rotary mixer, and I like everything to feel like the transitions. If you're not really paying attention, my goal is for the transition to not be noticeable. That's what I'm going for here. So with that said, is the 1200GR appropriate for mixing house and techno? I think the answer, unfortunately, is no. And the reason why is the 1200GR is basically a perfect turntable for DJs, except for one tiny fatal flaw that it has in the pitch slider. And I can't perfectly articulate what the flaw is without getting a bunch of scientific equipment out and trying to actually figure out what's going on when it goes wrong. But I can describe the symptoms to you and maybe we can come to a conclusion together. I have a couple of theories about what the actual problem might be. And I've talked to other people too, and they have the same sentiment that I do, right? So if you're a perfectionist mixer and you want your blends to just be as smooth and as long and as carried out, sometimes 1-2 minutes long, and you're going for that seamless effect, the 1200GR is going to pretty consistently let you down. If I brought you over to my house and you were an expert house music DJ and I said pick 10 of your favorite records that you know inside and out, and I want you to just play a set to me using two 1200GRs, you will fail. You will fail. You will not be able to consistently beat match on those things. So what I noticed is the pitch slider, it feels good. It has a very nice tactile feel to it, and you're able to make very precise movements with it. But where I'm not sure if the GR is actually accurate is when you start to make very small moves with it. Now, you could say that the resolution on the pitch slider might be too vague, right? So like if you took the whole range of +8 and -8 and broke it down into a little grid system, you might find that the individual units of pitch are too big. That's possible. I emailed Technics support twice from 2 different email addresses trying to find out what the smallest unit of pitch change that the pitch slider will register is, and I got no response. So that makes me think either no one's manning the inbox or they saw the question and nobody knows the answer, which I guess is concerning. So it's possible, like I said, that when you're beat matching, suppose the smallest unit of increment is 0.05%. It's possible that size of a block, that size of an increment in pitch change is too small, or I'm sorry, too big. And it could be that the actual pitch that you need is somewhere in the middle of that box. And like on a Pioneer CDJ, right, it goes down to 0.02%, right? So you can break a 0.05 box in half and still have some left over with a 0.02. So you're getting a lot more resolution there. The resolution could be the problem, because what I noticed is if I try to, let's say I grab 5 records and I try to beat match them, I'll get about 2 of them that are bang on and perfectly right. The other 2, maybe 3, what'll happen is I'll get close. I'll need to make one slight adjustment to the pitch slider, right? So let's say it's coming in just a little bit hot and I have to keep touching the platter and slowing it down periodically. Well, after I've touched it 3 or 4 times and I know that I'm a little bit fast, all I would want to do on my old M3Ds, which are what I've had for the last 20 years. I have a pair of Technics 1200 M3Ds. All I would do is just move the slider the smallest bit that I could, and then like watch and observe, right? When you do that same exercise, like that fine-tuning exercise on the 1200GR, this is where it falls apart. And like I said, it could be the resolution. Somebody else that I talked to said that it could be a torque issue with an inconsistency in the way that the torque behaves. But what happens is you move the slider down to make the correction, and it goes too far the other way. So now instead of coming in slightly hot, where you were just maybe just tapping the side of the platter just to put a little friction on it, you've gone way too slow. All right, well now it's pulling away to the downside, right? So I moved the pitch slider apparently to right back to where I just had it, and now I'm still too slow. So what happens is, as you're mixing, you just end up getting lost in your own pitch slider. On M3Ds, I can sit there and handle the pitch slider without even looking at it. I don't even have to look at it. I can just move it and listen, and move it and listen, and move it and listen. And I know that every time I move it, something's happening. I don't know to what extent, but I do know that something's happening. And I don't have the same confidence with the 1200GR. I think there's some times where you move that slider and nothing happens, and I think there's other times where you move that slider and too much happens. And that inconsistency will actually make these turntables make you seem or feel like a bad DJ. Now, for context, I bought a GR about a month ago, and I practiced on it for a few hours. Let's say 2 to 3 hours every weekend over the course of a month. And when I first started mixing on it, I had trouble. When I finished, about a week ago, when I finally gave up and just packed the thing up, I was still having the same amount of trouble. I was trying to mix on the simplest, most straightforward tech house records that I could find, like records that started with a kick drum, had very little breakdown or any dynamics at all. I just wanted the 2 simplest records to try to put together so that I could try to get this turntable to be what it was meant to be, or what it's advertised as, which is a turntable for serious DJs. And I just have to disagree with that. I'm not saying that the pitch slider is completely useless, because for somebody that really needs a perfect beast of a turntable for home listening, I think that the 1200GR actually fits that bill perfectly. And you could make the argument that home listeners would very much like the ability to change the pitch on a record. Maybe they like to hear it slower, maybe they like to hear it faster. And I do think that the pitch is accurate, right? So if you put the pitch slider at a specific point, I think it will hold that pitch to a ridiculously rigid standard. I'm not questioning its ability to hold its pitch. I'm questioning and making the assertion that its ability to change pitch reliably in small amounts is completely suspect, and this is where the turntable falters. I hope this answers the question for you out there. If you were considering, like, hey, maybe I have an old MK2 and the RCA cables are banged up, the tone arm doesn't really connect with the cartridge reliably, you might be thinking, should I just bite the bullet and buy a new 1200GR? And I think if you do that, you're going to be experiencing regret within a few weeks. Maybe you'll be okay with it for a day or two, or maybe a week. But if you use it for a month, 2 months, and you try to actually do some like real recorded DJ work, it's going to fail you. So I just wanted to answer that question. I hope that this helps somebody out there sort out whether or not the 1200GR works for house music. Take care.